Have you ever been out fishing and done something, made a decision that you almost immediately regret? Yeah, me too. Well, that's what we're talking about today. 5 things not to do on your kayak while fishing. Now, I did a video about a month ago on 5 tips for kayak fishing for beginners from a beginner. And I've had my kayak now for about a month longer. So I've had it about 2 months and I've gone on, I don't know, 10 trips, something like that. I do fish a lot. And I've learned quite a bit in that past 2 months on a lot of things that are really, really helpful. But I've also learned some things that you just should not do on a kayak. So that's what we're going to go over today. Let's get into it. All right, number 5, don't overload your kayak. Now, this is really, really difficult for me because I am somebody that overplans and overprepares for every single thing in my life, and that's just the way I am. But on a kayak, you are super limited on space already, and so you don't want to overpack your kayak with a lot of things that you just don't need, and you don't want to load it down with all of this extra stuff and extra weight on your kayak. You just don't need that. So bring the essentials, bring what you need. The worst thing out there is to bring something that you really, really need and you can't find it because you're digging through all kinds of stuff all over the place and you don't know where you put it because you have so much stuff. Bring the minimal, absolute minimal, what you need. Every trip's going to be different. If you're going offshore, you're going to pack your kayak completely different than if you're going into the bays or if you're fishing a lake or whatever. There's tons and tons of things that you can bring, but yeah, I promise you don't need it all. I've seen guys out just last weekend. There was a guy that had 6 rods on his kayak fishing the bay. I don't understand why anyone would need 6 rods. I barely use 2. Now, 2 is reasonable because if you get into a school of fish and you break off, they break the line, whatever, but you still see the fish running out there, you can grab that other rod real quick and get on them. But really any more than that, the last few trips, I think I've only really used the 1 rod. I don't think I even broke out the second one because I never broke the line. But beyond that, I don't understand why people need to bring so many. And that's odd for me. But I am somebody that overpacks. And it's very, very hard for me to get away from that. So keep it minimal. Bring exactly what you need. Make a checklist of the things that you absolutely need on your kayak and start getting rid of all the rest. Now, it's going to take you a few trips. It took me a month to figure out the things that I really just didn't need. I was going through my box and I don't think I really need 3 sets of pliers on the kayak. To be honest, I don't think I need 2. But, some of that stuff I finally started leaving in the garage and my packing has really gotten much, much smaller. It makes it easier for me to get on the water faster because I don't have to unload and load all of this stuff on and off my kayak. I can get there, put my crate in, put the kayak in the water and go. It's just much easier. So don't overload your kayak. Keep it minimal. Keep it simple. Get out there and fish. Number 4, don't wear waders in a kayak. I know they make you look super cool and you want to be out there and impress all the fish, but it makes absolutely no sense to wear waders. I don't know why you would wear waders in a kayak. I had a lot of people write on my 5 kayak fishing tips video, and that was one of the number 1 tips that they were giving was don't wear waders in a kayak. I probably had 10 people write that. I don't know why you would wear waders in a kayak. That's kind of the point of a kayak, is that you can get to spots that are shallow enough where boats can't get to, but you can also cross deeper areas that you can't wade to. So why would you get out of your kayak with waders on? Why not just stay in your kayak and fit? I don't know. Anyway, don't wear waders in a kayak, and here's why. Because if you happen to fall out in deep water, your waders are going to fill up with water and then you're going to drown. It's going to sink. The thing about waders is that they are waterproof. So if water gets inside of them, they're not getting out. And you're going to fill up like a gigantic water balloon and you're going to sink. So very, very unsafe. Not only that, waders aren't very comfortable, especially sitting in a kayak fishing. And that also means that you got to bring extra stuff like wading belt and And then you've got to anchor your kayak. I just don't understand. I don't know why you would wear waders in a kayak. Don't wear waders in a kayak, pretty much. Number 3, do not kayak alone in deep water. Yeah, there's a lot of people that do it. And I have seen tons and tons of YouTube videos of people going out alone offshore, kayak fishing. And almost every one of those videos ends the same way. And they almost all have the same title. And it's something along the lines, the worst thing that could happen kayaking, disaster kayaking, or whatever. But anyway, don't go into deep water alone on a kayak. That things happen really, really fast, especially when you go offshore. Even when I took my boat offshore, things happen quick, weather changes quick. I mean, there's just tons and tons and tons of things that can go wrong. Now, do I kayak fish alone? Yes, sometimes I do. But will I ever go in deep water? No, absolutely not. There's a video, I just went down Bastrop Bay, Bayou, into Bastrop Bay. And in that, there are parts of that that are like 10 foot deep. Same thing when I went over into Churchill Bayou and over into Christmas Bay and West Bay. Some of those spots are really, really deep. They're like 10 feet, but also within 15, 20 feet of that, it's like 3 foot deep, 2 foot deep. So if I can't swim 15 feet to shallower water where I can stand up, I probably shouldn't be on a kayak, period. I shouldn't be on the water, period. So you've got to figure out your locations, and you've got to be smart enough to realize, you know, what is safe and what's not. When I'm going alone, I'm going to places that if I fall out of my kayak or something horrible happens, I can stand up and I can walk. You don't want to be out into deep water where nobody's around and flip your kayak or something horrible happen and nobody be there to help you. It's just a bad scenario. Go watch all the other YouTube videos. There's tons and tons of people that, you know, it's pretty easy. Just search disaster on kayak. Guaranteed 90% of those are people that are out on a kayak by themselves in the middle of nowhere. So don't fish alone on a kayak if you are going into deep water. And when I mean deep water, I mean really anything that is over your head. If you can't stand up, that's deep water. Anyway, moving on. Number 2, do not cast directly in front of the nose of your kayak. And I know there's going to be people that are going to disagree with me on it, but just wait before you leave that comment below about how I'm an idiot. Let me explain. Because I understand if you are offshore and you are catching massive fish, massive sharks, you absolutely want to keep your rod pointed at the nose of your kayak. And here's why. Because if you have your rod off to the side and you are fishing in really, really deep water and you're fishing for these massive, massive fish, all of those fish, when they get hooked up, they all react the same. They all dive immediately, which will pull your rod down, which is going to pull you down, and everything around you is going down into the water. Now, if you have your rod facing the front of your kayak and one of those fish dies, there really isn't a fish that is strong enough to pull you over end on your kayak, unless you're fishing for like an orca. And if you're doing that, to be honest, he's probably saving all of us a lot of headache. Anyway, but I fish the bays. I fish the channels, the creeks. If you're lake fishing, it's the same thing. There really isn't a fish that I'm worried about flipping me out of my kayak. Even gigantic redfish, I don't think is going to be a problem. Not only that, but I also fish in relatively shallow water, so they don't have the ability to dive like if you're fishing really, really deep water. Now, the reason that I say don't fish directly off the nose, don't cast directly in front of you off the nose of your kayak when you're fishing those shallower waters is this. Because you're sitting in a chair, and when those fish hit, those trout, redfish, flounder, whatever your bass, if you're in a lake, if that's what you're fishing for, once they hit that, you're gonna feel it on the rod. If you're leaned up against something, it is nearly impossible to set that rod sitting in a chair. In fact, stand against a wall one day with a rod and try to set it. You'll end up seeing people do this, where they pull the rod like way up over their head and they're trying to fight a fish and keep tension on it like that. It's really, really impossible. However, if you're casting just 45-degree angle, something like that, next to you in the kayak, and a fish hits that, it's real easy to twist your body one way or the other. So one, you can set that hook. Secondly, if you're fishing right off the nose of your kayak and that fish hits it, you actually do get the set there on the line. What's going to happen is they're going to run towards you. And your kayak, because it's facing that, you're going to go towards them. The fish is going to go towards you. And then you're going to have all of this slack in your line. And I don't care how fast you can reel, you can't reel fast enough to keep tension, and that fish is going to get off. Not only that, but if there's a school of fish running around in that area, you want to be able to continue to fish that area for a while. So if that fish pulls your kayak into that area, all those fish are going to scatter, and now you've ruined an entire spot, an entire area to fish, because now you're sitting right on top of that fishing area. So it's not very beneficial. It's not helpful at all to fish that way. What I do is I fish like a 45-degree angle off of each side. That's where I cast. If a fish hits that, then I have plenty of time to set the hook. My kayak is going to rotate sideways, and then I fight them up to the side of my kayak rather than up to the front. It's so much easier to land fish like that consistently than it is if you're fishing right off the front, and you're going to ruin your spot. You're going to miss so many hook sets on that. It's just really, really difficult to do. So if you're fishing that shallow water, if you're fishing, creeks and bayous and bays and things like that, it just makes more sense to fish off the sides of your kayak. But again, if you're fishing offshore, if you're fishing deep water, if you're fishing for gigantic fish, keep your rod in front of you at the nose of your kayak. It's just much, much safer. You're not going to get flipped out of your kayak, but you've got to figure out what you're doing. If you're fishing offshore, it's going to be completely different than if you're fishing inshore. All right, number one, don't pull anything into your kayak that has sharp teeth or spines or pretty much anything that can poke or cut you. All right, so, you've got sharks, you've got hardheads, lionfish, barracudas, wow, there's a lot of fish that could really ruin your day. I know that sounds extremely obvious. In a kayak, you're pretty limited on room. And on top of that, the only place to really put one of those fish is like right in between your legs. And I don't know about you, but I definitely don't want anything that has sharp teeth or anything that can poke me flopping around in between my legs. Just saying. I'm going to tell you a little story about a catfish I caught last year. And I caught this on a boat. It wasn't even on my kayak. I have literally caught over 1,000 catfish. And hardhead catfish, if you've ever fished in Galveston, they have these horrible spines that will poke you. And I've been poked 3-4 times in my life, but I've been hit by those. And it was bad, but the pain goes away pretty quickly. And I caught a hardhead catfish. And it was pretty big. It was like 20, 24 inches. I mean, it was a big catfish. And I've always learned how to grab them using your thumb and pinky. You kind of go like underneath their barbs, and then you can grab the whole thing. And regardless how much they flop around and shake, they'll never poke you that way. But I had it on the line, and then I went to grab it. And the moment I did that, he just kind of started thrashing around, and his barb went into the webbing of my thumb. And then the other side basically came to the center of my hand. And that was really, really painful from the get-go. It was, but it was more of a shock. It was like, oh, wow, that really, really sucks. But then I looked down at my hand after I like jerked away, which, by the way, you never want to do that because you can break their spine off inside your skin. And then you're definitely going to the hospital for sure. About 30 seconds later, maybe 40 seconds later, that's when the real pain hit me, because those hardhead catfish, they have toxins that run through their body, and they inject those with their spines. Not all catfish are created the same, because I've been hit by quite a few of them, and none of them were like that. That was easily top 5 worst pain I've ever been in my life. But anyway, the toxin hit my bloodstream, and I literally felt it from my shoulder down to my fingers. It instantly made me sick. I was nauseous. I was like hanging over the side of the boat, throwing up. It was awful. And the pain would not go away. It ended my fishing trip for sure. It was horrible. It was painful. And so when people say that it was like the worst pain ever, they're not lying. It was awful. So yeah, not all catfish are created equal. Some of them hurt. Some of them hurt really, really, really bad. I got hit by one that was awful. Yeah, don't do that. Don't bring them in the kayak. It's pretty easy, you know, especially in shallower water, to unhook a catfish. That's why I got those like Landers fish grips. I can grab a hold of those, pull the hook out without ever getting near the fish. Now I know it's awesome to pull in a huge shark and like hold it up for the camera because it really does make an awesome picture. However, what doesn't make an awesome picture is you missing a hand. Actually, that's probably a cool picture too. You get a lot of views on that, but probably not worth it. So anyway, keep them out. You can control them by the side of your kayak, pull your line up. If they're kind of like hanging out, you can pull those hooks. And if you can, if it's like jammed in there, cut the line as close as you can to the hook. Those hooks, because they're steel, which is another thing, make sure you're using steel hooks in salt water. Because they're steel hooks, they're going to rust out really, really quickly, and it will disintegrate. The fish will be fine. The shark will be fine, whatever. So you don't have to really, really worry about that. But it's not worth it to lose an arm or a hand, or get, you know, hit by a catfish or any of those other toxic fish. It's just not worth it. So make sure, don't bring anything that can cause you danger into the kayak with you. It's just not worth it. All right, well, I hope this video helped you not to make some of the mistakes that I've made and some of the mistakes that other people have made. Anyway, if you liked the video, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell notification so that you know when I drop my next video, and we'll see you next time. I appreciate you watching.